Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&A, so let's go ahead and get this started. Alright, first question. Why is my deadlift is so weak? I'm doing 285 for 2 sets of 5 hard reps, but my Pendley row is 225 for 3x5, and squats are 335 for 3x5, and my good morning is 255 for 10 reps, 3 sets. I'm 5'6", weigh 166 pounds with 21% body fat. Thanks. All right, every one of your lifts suggests that you can deadlift a lot more than you think you can. Part of your problem may be that you're trying to do too much volume on the deadlift itself. All right, you may be doing too much volume and not practicing your actual technique enough. And when I mean practicing, learning to deadlift correctly. Might I make a suggestion here? Assuming those squats are to depth and looking at those rows in good mornings, you should be able to deadlift 405. I'm going to recommend you go over to conjugate training. Whatever system you're using, stop doing it. Go over to conjugate. Have someone look at your deadlift. Actually upload a clip of you deadlifting and send it over to my Facebook fitness page. Let me take a peek at your deadlift, actually. I'd almost say I want to see this deadlift. Could be some major form issues that you need to correct. But I think if you run conjugate for just a little bit and you stop trying to do hard sets of 5 and you pull only maxes on variations and you do speed work with 50 to 60% of your max for singles, I think that you'll be deadlifting 405 in a very, very, very short period of time. Okay? There's some programming issues clearly with your deadlift. And again, it might be that you're trying to do too many sets of 5 and you're just too fatigued. And it could be an issue of you're just not ever doing a heavy pull, so you're not actualizing your potential. You literally might be able to deadlift 405 with like 1 month of practicing singles if you get your technique dialed in. So this is what you need to fix, because you should be more than strong enough to do that at this point based upon all your other lifts. All right, next question. I'm an intermediate lifter. I started cutting a month and a half ago, down 5 pounds, mostly water so far. My strength took a hit, but now I seem to be at a point where I'm able to rebuild while still losing weight slowly. How can this be? Well, I think when you look at it, look, if you feel like you lost mostly water, that means that you feel like you lost a good chunk of that in the first week, right? So you're saying you've probably lost 3 pounds of body fat over the course of 6 weeks. You're an intermediate lifter. You took a hit because you weren't used to less training fuel. You weren't used to losing that water retention that was helping you with leverages. And as soon as you adapted, your training has gone back to putting muscle tissue on you. You were probably very, very slowly gaining muscle because you were an intermediate. And if you're following decent programming and the volume's not too high, you may be stimulating some muscle growth because you're losing weight very slowly. Losing weight very slowly. Again, 5 total pounds in 6 weeks. Less than a pound a week, and that's counting your initial water loss. You're not losing more than half a pound of fat per week. That is very slow. That is almost not a cut, right? And that's why when I tell people they should bulk and cut and they get upset and they think I'm giving them bad advice, it's like, no, if they bulked and cut like that to where they only gained 5 pounds of body fat and then did a 10-week cut to lose it, these are people who would be bigger and stronger year-round. I mean, quite frankly, right? Because again, a non-advanced lifter losing fat that slowly, it's actually possible to make a little bit of progress. Or at the very least, if you lost a little bit of strength on the front end, you've been able to regain what you lost very quickly once you've adapted to the small deficit. But you may not even be in a deficit every week or every day. So you may actually be at maintenance on certain weeks and then you're back into a deficit another. And so it's giving you a break and it's giving you a chance to gain. And again, a slow cut like that, it's absolutely possible for you to gain some muscle. It's just going to be excruciatingly slow. But it will work. Once you get more advanced, it's going to be really hard to do that. So a lot of the answer of how you're able to do this is because you're not in a deficit probably all the time. You're slow cutting. You're probably bouncing between a small deficit and maintenance. And you probably have your programming about right. You probably also had to scale the volume back. You started losing strength, had to train less Now you're able to recover also because you're doing less. Totally doable. And you know what? If it seems to be working for you, if you're happy with that rate of fat loss and you're able to get a little bit stronger as you go while you're doing it, hey, that's great. The best of both worlds. Once you get down to your desired body fat, you can go back to a slow bulk and the gains will pick back up. They'll go even faster again, especially if you've got things dialed in enough right now to where you're making some progress at a small deficit. You'll be good to go as soon as you go back to lean bulking a little bit, right? Slow bulking. You'll be good to go. That's what I would advise. All right, next question and last question of the week. I want to get stronger. I want to grow muscle, but I also really dislike bulking and the inevitable body fat I gain while doing so. Lesigh, women are impossible standards. Am I doomed? Do you have any advice for me and other women or men in the same boat? Yeah, to be fair, a lot of men are in the same boat. You're not alone. This is not a problem exclusive to women. It would have been at one time, but more so guys actually do care about their body fat a lot more today. Just as much as women do. That being said, here's the way to look at it. You're going to have to compartmentalize your way of looking at these things and say, I want to get stronger. Like you wrote that. You started off. I want to get stronger. I want to grow muscle. Okay. So it's okay. You can dislike the little bit of body fat gain. But you accept it because you say, hey, these are my goals. And we have to sometimes set other goals aside temporarily to get the things that we want. And then we can go back and focus on the other things. Now, here's the upside to it. And the thing to remember as a woman, you're not going to need to gain weight as quickly as a man, right? Because you're going to gain muscle, like pounds of muscle, because simply put, women have smaller frames, smaller bone structures, lower anabolic hormones, less testosterone and things in your body. You're going to gain muscle at approximately 50% of the rate that a man will, right? So if you're going to gain muscle at 50% of the rate a man will, you can probably bulk at half the rate. In other words, you don't need to bulk like a man does. You don't need to say, hey, I'm going to gain 2 pounds every month, 3 pounds every month to gain muscle. It's not necessary. You could bulk and gain 1 pound a month, and probably for a woman, that will probably maximize your anabolic potential. You will gain some body fat, but you won't gain nearly as much. And you look at it this way. Let's assume that you can gain it in a 1-to-1 ratio, which is probably about right? If you're not a novice lifter, gaining a pound of muscle and a pound of fat together is probably reasonable. So let's say that you bulk for 8 months and you put on 8 pounds of body weight over the course of 8 months, and half of it's fat, and you put on 4 pounds of new muscle tissue. That's a pretty good rate. That's actually reasonable. But you've only put on 4 pounds of fat. You could diet that off in 4 to 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Okay? 6 weeks, you could diet that back off completely, and you will now be holding 4 extra pounds of muscle tissue with the same fat you had before the bulk. And then if you go back into another bulk, you're still going to stay at that same body fat percentage for the first few months of the bulk again. To keep the bulks smaller per month so that you're only gaining 3 or 4 pounds of body fat through the entire long period of a bulk. Not going to be as big of a deal, and it's going to be easier for you to lose that. Don't want to do the dreamer bulks. As a female, you do not want to do the dreamer bulk. Some of these guys who are like, I'm going to gain 4 pounds every month. Well, yeah, that's going to be almost all fat. That's not going to be ideal. But if you gain just 1 pound, your body fat percentage is probably only going to change 1 to 2% even over a 7 or 8 month bulk. And you can take that off real quick. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.